All right, guys, we're here at Max Life Chiropractic. Dr. Brett here. I'm going to go through a little bit of stuff on some hip flexors. A lot of people that we deal with, because they sit too much, postural stuff, things like that, hip flexors become a really big issue with them. When your hip flexors are bad, obviously it's going to start to mess with your structure. I mean, for the most part, for lack of a better term, we're using a general term in terms of hip flexors, but those muscles that make that up are the muscles that basically attach down into your femurs down here that allow you to do this motion, allow you to bring your knee up at that point. So anytime you walk, even for that matter, hip flexor gets engaged with it. When you sit, same type of idea. You shorten the distance from your hips to your femurs at that point. And even from that matter, your hip flexors attach into there, but they originate literally clear back up in your spine where your psoas muscle ties into here. It then courses down through your abdomen, ties into here. So flexion of your torso down on your hips causes them to shorten as well too. So most people who sit during the day do a lot of this as time goes on, which shortens that distance. Now, so when you stand up, going all the way upright is very difficult in some cases. And what happens is one side versus the other starts to pull more than the other, and you start getting this wonky pattern, this twisted, this torque pelvis pattern through here, which that's what leads to a lot of other problems at that point, from knee problems to foot problems to back problems and so on and so forth. So the big thing we want to try to work on, obviously from a chiropractic standpoint, is to create more mobility through your pelvis as a whole, which helps really, like I said, get the structure moving as well as get the neurology turned back on to help with the process. But we also have to address some of the soft tissue stuff in here. So I'm going to show you a couple things to work on your own, at home, at work even for that matter, that can help, kind of, like I said, alleviate some of the tension and stress in there. The first one's pretty simple. Basically, we're just going to go into a lunge position here. Comfortable, knees on the ground, hips are square. I'm going to drive my pelvis forward now. So like all I'm doing basically is I'm trying to drive my knee further that direction. I'm taking my hips all the way forward. Now I'm going to just rotate. I'm going to take, almost as if I'm going to throw this ball over my shoulder, but I'm going to take my arms and rotate back this way. So I'm lengthening the distance from my torso to my hip. So I'm going to feel it back and through there. I can also go above my head and fall back this way as well too, to help, again, lengthen that distance that happens from in through my hips and my pelvis there. You obviously don't need a ball to be able to do that. Obviously I'm going to go on the other side, hips forward, rotate away. You can see from the side here where my angle of my hip is, where my knee drives here. Rotate my body back away in this direction here. So really pretty simple with that. It's an easy version. If your knees give you problems, you can also do it from a standing position. Just got to make sure you're not leaning forward, but drop your hips, push your hips forward, torso straight up the whole time. So right through here, rotate away, back over that side. It's not turning, it's up and over. It's extension through there with a little bit of rotation through it. So really simple with that. Same thing, opposite direction through there. If you want to get a lot more direct with it, this is basically a myofascial ball. You can use a softball, you can use a soccer ball for that matter, you could use a racket ball even. But what I want to do is get right down into that hip flexor on that side of my body, and I'm just going to work on rolling that out. It's not going to feel good, it shouldn't feel good, I'm guessing, in most people's situations, but I'm just simply moving that ball through there to work that tissue. I may turn my foot out and get a little bit deeper back in that groin area there. If you have to, get some of your body weight off with your arms, but as much as you can tolerate, get back in there. If you find those hot spots, sit there a little bit. Let that body kind of sink into that ball a little bit more and find some of those areas there. You can also work on bending the knee up and extending that leg back to expose that hip flex a little bit more through there. So pretty simple with that. Again, both sides within tolerance. A ball like this is 10 bucks. It's a pretty easy tool. You can use it on a lot of the stuff. The last thing is, and what happens most of the time is with what you can do with stretching stuff is to strengthen the exact opposite. So rather than a hip flexor, we want to work on the hip extenders, which is your glutes and your hamstrings for that matter. So an easy way to do that is just hip extension. So straight up off the floor, squeeze my butt, squeeze my hamstrings through there. If you want to focus on one side, legs straight out. On the opposite side, hip up, push through there. Flat through here. I'm not leaving from one side to the other, but I'm firing this glute, firing this hamstring on this side. So an easy thing with that. If that's too hard, start face down, bend the knee, straight up at the hip. Not out, but straight up through the hip here. You can work on holding that to start with. You can come back down, you can do reps. That gets easy, go straight leg, up, down, up, down. You're gonna feel it through your glute, you're gonna feel it through your hamstring as well through there. So that's a really simple, easy hip flexor, not just stretching, but also some strengthening pieces that help, like I said, drive more stability through here. The key is too, when you're at work during the day, don't sit all day. Get up and move a little bit. Get up and work on extending your torso. Lengthen that distance of your hip flexors there. Arm over the top, things like that. The lunge stuff we just showed, you can do this at work. It's just a matter of being consistent and doing it on a fairly regular basis. Our rule of 55-5 is simply you sit for 55 minutes, you move for 5. Whether you're just walking or you're getting up and actually stretching, things like that can help. And with the walking part, another easy hip flexor piece that you can do is lengthen your stride a little bit to the point where you feel like you're reaching. Reach with that foot. Don't just pick your foot up and put it down. Don't shuffle, but reach with that foot to give you a little more distance, because that's going to naturally stretch the hip flexors on both sides. So that's our lesson for today.